Please help me welcome Dr. Andrea Bowens-Jones and D2 Kasiu.
Right. Hello, D2. Hello, Andrea. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this Leadership Recalibrated session. I am going to be talking through with you all, moderating the session with you. So we are going to jump right in. One of the first things I really want to kind of jump into, just based on some of the feedback that we got from the mentee just now, is coaching. In this very competitive talent market that we are living through in right now, how can coaching be positioned as a value add that keeps employees engaged? We know retention is a big thing. So how can coaching add value to that? And so I'll let either one of you all jump in.
Okay.
I yield to the young lady.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. It is so important. I'll just start off with the fact that it is so important for leaders to invest in their teams. And when we think about positioning coaching as a tool in a leader's toolbox, it is about equipping them with the skills to be able to use the powerful questioning that we use in the coaching business, to use these open-ended questions to help lead those employees to their own level of understanding. I call it the PAVE model in my coaching business, where I help leaders kind of understand the possibilities in front of them. Because a lot of times what happens is they get in a situation and they think there's only one way out, there's only one solution. But by using tools that we use in the coaching practice, we help open them up to the possibilities. And when it comes to retention, is from the employee side, is the fact that they feel like their leaders or their managers are investing in them. So when it comes to opportunities to stay or go, we know that one of the number one reasons people leave organizations is because of that manager, that one-up manager, that experience that they're having. And knowing that your leader is investing in you can shape and change that. So I'll at least start there. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Do you add to it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you kicked us off really great. And Aisha, I want to thank you for inviting me and putting me on the panel with this, amazing, leader in Dr. Jones. Like, I'm gonna get a lot just from hearing from you, Dr. Jones.
Oh, together we're gonna do this.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking about organizations and we're talking about competitive advantage, the old school model is you got a coach when you was a problem employee. That's the old school model. So people didn't view coaching as an added benefit. Now, if you put coaching in as a part of the instructional design, of how you're going to develop people, and this is how we develop our leaders, because we are going to position you for success. And that makes it a difference, So when I get coached, I know I'm getting coached not because I'm a problem. I'm getting coached because you see the value in me and how I can help the company. And so when when people feel that the organization is positioning them for success, right, then they, right, will connect that and say, hey, this is a place I want to be because people recognize my talent and my ability. And I would also say a lot of times superstars don't get coaching.
Tell me more. Tell me
Right?
more.
Superstar, what they get is, oh, you're doing a good job. They'll give you a high performance rating, but they won't tell you the things that you need to do to go exponentially to grow, right?
Mhm.
And then, leaders will spend more time, with the folks that are middle or mediocre, managing those or avoiding those. And so the superstars just get that one line, oh, great job. Are you sure you did it again? Right? But real coaching, right, is really highlighting specifically what did they do well? How does that connect, to the organization? And as we look at your strengths and as we look at the strategic direction of the organization, here are the next opportunities that will broaden your capability or enhance your acumen in the organization so that a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll be better positioned to add more value. When people see the future of the organization and they see themselves in that future direction of the organization, then they become committed to being a part of the organization. And nothing says, I love you. And I know we don't like to use that word in corporate America, right? But we are human beings, and human beings respond to love or care or concern. Nothing says that more than nothing says I love you more than time. So when you spend some time coaching and developing your leaders, you know what? This person cares about me. They see me and they see the talent that I bring, and they're helping me to become a greater part of the organization. I'm going to stay with an organization. I'm not going to leave for a few dollars because I'm going to go over there and they're not going to give me much. You know, little dollars won't equate to that.
So D2, you said something else too, and I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna take us to our next question. When you have that high performer and it's just all kudos and they're doing well, that actually becomes a bias in their growth and how you lead them sometimes. And when you have to have that moment to provide them with some constructive coaching and feedback, it can be a little bit more difficult for them to receive because they're so used to getting the praise all of the time. And then it becomes a bias and an error, a rater error, so RATER error, when you are doing their performance review, because everything is just so amazing. And to your point, if you don't provide them with any type of feedback, they miss that opportunity to grow. And I love what you said also, coaching, yeah, it used to just be for everything constructive. But now we know that coach mentality is a lot different. We want people to really show up and to improve. What is something, so I'm stick with coaching and then we're going to kind of transition a little bit. How can we or how should we coach managers to coach their people so that it really becomes about retention and not just about performance?
Really great question. I'll take a stab at it and I'll throw it to the good doctor. You know, and I like to go, I think from an OD organizational perspective is, hey, how do we build systems that enable, right, for it to be a part of the way we do business? So if you want your managers to coach, then the people that your managers report to, they need to coach them. They need to build in the culture that we're going to have one-on-ones with our managers. And in those one-on-ones, we're not having the traditional, conversation, right? And in those one-on-ones, are we having developmental, conversations that says, hey, here's what you're doing well. Here's the things that we can take to the next level. And here's where you're going. All right. And where do you see, and how do you see yourself progressing? And if that is a part of what's happening to the manager, then we are in turning, right, through our own modeling, the leaders above our modeling, what we're expecting the manager to now do with their employees, if that's the way that we do business. And I do workforce development, so I get to see certain departments where people are doing extremely well, and the ones that are struggling. The ones that are really doing well, they are putting in the time. Back to the earlier comment, that performance conversation, the annual performance review, becomes very difficult if you're not having these conversations along the way, and you do not build into the employee the ability to receive coaching if you're not talking to them often, right? And that's, by the time you have that performance conversation, they're used to hearing what works well. They're used to thinking about what can I do to take it to the next level. And then that, really helps, leaders managers to turn around and do it for their employees. Over
So
to you,
Dr. Andrea, well, I'm gonna add to the question. And because D2, you kind of took us there, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump to this question. So Dr. Bowens, what role does cross-functional coaching play in building our leadership pipeline? So D2 just shared, you coach, you help see the skills, improve the skills. How can coaching truly help build the pipeline?
Yeah, I love this question, especially the cross-functional piece of it, because when you think about being inside of an organization uh, and managing your talent, having the ability to have those cross-functional ties helps round out an individual and it helps grow their perspective. For example, I spent the first part of my career, I call it career 1.0, inside of an organization, an R&D organization, where most of my world was built around managing technology teams or innovation and doing that kind of work. But that alone did not help grow the people. They couldn't understand the business aspects of it. So building in strong relationships with colleagues that allowed for mentors to mentor them about different business aspects helped to grow not only the understanding of where your particular part of the business fits into the overall strategy of an organization, but also helped understand how that links to the other parts, whether it be the business or the commercial aspects of it. So when you think about growing the long-term aspect of your leadership pipeline, it doesn't start with the leaders that you already have today. It starts with those that are coming up through the ranks, those that are individual contributors, and getting them ready so when they transition to a people manager role, you don't run into some of the same issues over and over because they've had a chance to practice some of those skills even early on.
Yeah. Some follow-up questions there to you first, and then D2, I'll come to you. How can you spot that leadership potential? So when
Ooh,
you are
I love
seeing
this
it,
question better. Yes.
so as you're giving them that
Mhm.
cross-functional, cross-departmental opportunity to get new perspectives, how can we spot leadership potential outside of individuals that are in a traditional management track?
Yeah, before we go into that one, I'd at least love to talk about growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
I love
Because
it.
one of the traps that we fall into, and I'd say everybody at some point, is you spot an individual and you see them in the context of one experience. So one project, one interaction, and boom, you build an entire judgment on it. You introduce bias before. That's where those
Mhm.
biases come into play. And that prevents being able to see what someone can accomplish. If you remind yourself to approach or ask yourself those questions that open it up, what could this person do? What possibilities if I gave this person a different experience or if I was able to grow them in this particular area? That's a growth mindset. And that's how you can start to see it. So, yes, they may have the attributes of being able to articulate themselves in meetings. Yes, they may have those attributes like taking accountability and vulnerability and all the things that we look for in leaders. But without the opportunities, the projects, the experiences, approaching it with that growth mindset, you won't be able to see that leadership potential that you're trying to look for. So I know it doesn't directly answer your question, but I think approaching it's the mindset that starts it first before you can even see some of those attributes.
Yeah. So D2, I'm going to change my question, but it goes along with that. When we're looking for that growth mindset, can you share with us a time or some examples or techniques when you see the growth potential in somebody and they don't? So how do you help them to see their potential for leadership? Because we know sometimes people get promoted into manager roles because they're good at the process, but they're not necessarily a good leader.
Absolutely. And I would look at those as two different separate things, to the question about spotting, talent. So of course we have our traditionals, right? Who are the high potential folks? So we hire them into a track and we know that track leads to leadership. And then we have our other folks, right? Who are individual contributors and may not see themselves as leaders at all. The first thing I say, it's hard to spot talent if you're not spending time looking for it, right? And then when you're looking for the talent, you're looking for when people are performing, how they perform, not necessarily that they have to win at what they perform, but how did they go through it? What was their responses to the dips and the valleys? Because that will show you the level of maturity, that will show you the level of commitment, that will show you the thirst and the hunger How do they respond, to the feedback that was given in relation to that? When you can see those positive attributes, then you can go in and have a conversation about what they're up to. What do they think that they're really good at? How do they see themselves in the organization? And usually when, like a person in my role, or Keisha in a leadership role, you have an idea of a lot more about what's possible than they do. And then that's where you want to introduce them into something that's on the edge, of their comfort zone, not beyond them, because we don't want to set people up for failure, but on the edge of their comfort zone, and let them know, say, you know what? I see this as an opportunity for you. Let's go together, right? To move forward in that edge opportunity. And I know that works because you know what? That worked for me. So many people. And sometimes, when you work with folks, we can't be afraid to push them, right? Sometimes you got to push them into the pool, right? I mean, we're not saying pick them up and throw them in, but push them in, right? And then support them, as they move forward. And then they will be forever thankful, that you did that, and they will perform at a high level.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So that push, and we know it's push with intention and purpose. And when we think about coaching and feedback, I'm going to throw this question to both of you. So D2, I'll start with you. Dr. Bowens, I'll come to you. What are some feedback methods that you have observed that are either outdated? So you see some of your colleagues, peers, clients, it's either outdated or it's not as effective as they think it might be.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw the easy one, the sandwich approach, right? I mean, that thing is old. That is so old, right? And so I like the feed forward approach, um, and the next steps. And so it starts really with, saying, starting with them, say, hey, what was your view of this circumstance or situation? And I like to start with, what do you believe worked well um, in the frame of what we were trying to accomplish? And then what are the things that we learned from that experience? And oftentimes you have to create an environment with people, because some people automatically go to the negative. Oh, we didn't do this. No, let's start with what did really work well. What was the part that you were extremely comfortable? What parts of it were you proud of? Now, what were the areas that we need to take, to the next level? And then what are the next steps that we're going to take? So that's the feeding forward. We get the insight, we feed forward, and we take what actions that are going to be taken, right, based upon what has been learned, right? Versus the old, I'm going to give you a compliment up front, I'm going to tell you a little bit bad in the middle, right? And I'm going to end with a compliment, right? That is a stale approach. So I like the feed forward approach, or the next step
Thank you.
approach.
Thank you, D2. Dr. Bowens, I'll
Yeah.
come to you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. It also makes me think about the whole, do you want to hear the good news or the bad news, as another approach with it. So I'm completely aligned. The only thing I add to it, with these frameworks, these powerful ones that we use, is recognizing the context in the world that we live now. It is, if we could all put a sensitivity meter in our offices, we know that thing would be all the way to red. Everyone is much more sensitive when it comes to how you say things. The context matters, the timing matters. Not that those things didn't matter before, but in this new world that we live in now, it matters even more. And especially when you're dealing with virtual teams and giving people feedback. I remember when the biggest thing we had to worry about is someone sending an email and it's in all caps. You think about it, quit yelling at people. Like, that is so small and so minor now, because now things can escalate so quickly. So the only thing that I would add to that same framework is recognizing the context, recognizing the time, and even the relationship that you have in it. And I think, D2, you said it earlier about spending time with people. When people know that you're there and you're for them, they can take that constructive feedback because they have a context in which to put it, like the relationship you have with them, versus that coming from another space of a person that you don't have. So just other things to kind of think about when you're dealing with people in this new world that we're in.